Hi, I'm Evaleen from Ausome Training, and today I'm talking to Steph Macaulay, or Maqqi as you're also known. Maqqi, thanks for joining me today, and you'll be joining us on Sunday at the conference as a panelist, where you'll be talking about neurodiversity, and you'll also be available for the Q&A session that we have scheduled at the end of the day. Could you tell us maybe what are you most looking forward to about the day?
Probably the most unobvious part in some ways, which is that this conference is going to have full Irish Sign Language coverage, which I think is actually an incredibly important element of the whole thing, even though it's not the content. It's a really, really important aspect of bringing inclusivity into the whole thing. And I think that's something which has been sorely lacking a lot of the time in these things. People talk a lot about, oh, you know, this is a professional conference and stuff like that, and there's no real space there for autistic people amongst that community and stuff. But that's only one step of the whole process. There are so many people out there who use sign language, not just people who are deaf or whatever, but people who are non-speaking as well. And a lot of people who are neither deaf nor non-speaking use sign language, and it becomes a huge aid to communication. And this is all about communication. I think it's a really, really important step, and I think that's something that needs to be highlighted.
Yeah,
and that's going to be interesting to see how that works, because you know, online as well. You know, there's people have that opportunity, I guess, potentially to kind of just focus on the ISL if they want to. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the feedback from that is like. Bit of an experiment in some ways, but whether it works or not, I think it's an important thing that had to be there anyway. And it's kind of setting a bar for everyone else and saying, come on, let's see you do this now.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's my second conference, and actually I think it dawned on me halfway through the conference last year. I was like, why didn't I get sign interpreters? Because a lot of what I do is obviously promoting the idea that communication isn't just speech, but also I don't think we can be standing, you know, saying we need to be accepting and inclusive of autistics and leaving other people out. So I mean, that's I try as much as I can to be inclusive, and it is promoting the idea of communication. So yeah, and I mean, I suppose it's something I've been conscious that we needed to do for a long time.
Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, look, we know each other. I know what you're like, and you tend to get kind of fairly kind of bullish about all this inclusion stuff. And I think the other thing that I'm looking forward to is another one of those. This isn't the way we do this kind of thing, but actually we're going to bloody do it because it needs to be done kind of thing, which is bringing Dara in as an autistic minor, kind of given free rein to kind of just say, right, well, this is what I'm going to talk about from my perspective, bringing in those perspectives. That's really, really, really important. Did that with the first conference in a different way. And I think that's something which is kind of becoming, this is what awesome conferences are about. Let's just take the obvious, let's just knock that over, and let's just say, well, what really needs to be in there, and just bringing in voices like that, I think it's really important.
Yeah, because I did want to include a child last year. I just didn't. I kind of asked a few people who I knew.
Yeah,
it just didn't work out. But I remember a friend of mine saying at the time, I don't know, like, do children normally take part in conferences? You know?
Well, the answer to that is no, and that's why we should have them in there. Let's get them in there. The amount of times you hear people saying, oh yeah, but like, you know, like that's an adult perspective. Like, you don't know my child. Well, here's the child. Now, come on, let's go and tell me about that now. That's, I think, a really, really important thing. It's just to break down those assumptions and just say, look, we're all working from the same mindset here, actually. So yeah. But the way I looked at it was there's three kinds of expertise that are going into this conference that are coming at it from different points of view. I mean, there's a lot in there, but the three people were Dara, bringing in that kind of the voice of the autistic minor into the thing and saying, okay, look, this needs to be heard. And the other two are Chris Bonello as an autistic person, but also as somebody with teaching experience. So you're taking in that, not just this is the teacher's experience, not just this is an autistic's experience, but this is an autistic teacher's experience, bringing that into the thing and saying, look, you know, from the point of view of teachers and stuff, this is one of your guys.
Yeah.
But it's all of our guys. This is somebody who's going to bridge that gap there. And also Owen, who is such an important element in all of this as well. And I'm really glad you've got him in there on a panel as well, because he's bringing in that kind of the kind of psychology professional point of view, but he's also bringing in the autistic angle on it and putting those two together as well. And it's that kind of mix and mash between all of these things, bringing them all together and actually saying, well, do you know what, like there's a consistency when you actually, and I think people should do this when they're attending, is look at the kinds of things that Dara is saying, look at the kinds of things that Chris is saying, look at the kinds of things that Owen is saying, and watch how much they're in tune with each other, because there is this real consensus right across the board, and people I don't think appreciate that so much because they tend to see this perspective or they see that perspective, and they're all kind of in their own little niches. But when you put them all side by side, you start to realize there's actually quite a lot of consistency in what people are saying.
Yeah.
The other thing I really want to do, because I've talked to Melissa about her presentation on autistic authors, is I want to see her do this presentation because it's really exciting, the stuff she's got in there. People tend to go like, oh yeah, well, here's like a guidebook written by autistic people, and here's a book for kids that's written by people to understand the autistic child. You know, it's all sorts of stuff in there. Like, I mean, she's got like fiction, she's got all sorts of stuff that you are not expecting to see on that list. It's a really nice list. And I just want to see people's responses to the stuff that's on there, because it just, again, it's about changing the rules, not what you expected. So that's going to be a good one. And also Emma, the wonderful Emma, Big M, who's going to be talking about all of the bad things, all the bad stuff. This is kind of, never mind the upside, there's also a bad side, and that's something that I think we need to not shy away from. Nobody's conferences talk about this, all the bad stuff that goes on, bad therapies, weird, freaky stuff, and the bad stuff that gets done to kids. It's a hard topic, but it needs to be in the mix there because it is a real part of people's lives.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. But that kind of ties in as well to the whole kind of the panel on mental health as well, which I think is a huge part of it. Honestly, I mean, I've done this and I know other people have done it as well, where they kind of think, okay, well, let's think of all the autistic people I know. Do I know anyone who hasn't experienced any serious mental health consequences of the way they're treated because they're autistic? Not one. Can't find one. Everyone's been impacted by it. And I think it's going to be a really important discussion, and especially for parents and for teachers and therapists and so on, people around the edges, to understand what the consequences of seemingly innocent and actions are, and things that are where the intention is good, but the consequences were never what people expected. Seeing that from the other side, this is what it actually ends up like. I think it's important for people to see that as well, because it's one thing saying, oh, this is a bad thing, you shouldn't do it. But hearing people talking about it in terms of like the real life impacts, and that's such an important thing, just to help people understand why people are campaigning so hard about these things. You know, it's not just to be bloody minded. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of really exciting parts of the whole thing, but I mean, there's more in there. I mean, there's me talking complete and utter nonsense, and Chen as well, of course, and Kieran. And actually, there's two in there which I didn't kind of mention, was Kieran's talk and Frank's, and they're more about kind of the nature of what being autistic is. And I think people often talk about, oh, you know, what is autism? Well, they're not kind of about what is autism. They're about what is it to be autistic.
Yeah.
That's, again, it's about bringing the realism of actual lived experiences into the whole thing. That's what I think this is going to be. This is what this is. The Ausome conferences do. They're not conferences about autism. They're conferences about being autistic.
Yeah, because lots of people think they know what autism is. Lots of people have studied books and studied people and researched autism, and they think they have an idea of what autism is. But the only people who know what it is to be autistic is autistics. It's as simple as that, you know, and it's kind of ridiculous that, you know, someone will kind of go to people who think they know what they're talking about instead of actually just asking the people who actually know what it is to be autistic and the impact the world has on us. And, you know, I think that is the difference. The conference it is about promoting what it is to be autistic, explaining that, and explaining the impact it has on us when we're not allowed to be autistic, when we're not allowed to be ourselves. And when people, I say that, sometimes people think I'm talking about allowing kids to be banging their heads off walls and, you know, this kind of stuff. And again, that's a total misunderstanding, because if a person is accepted and is allowed to be autistic, well, they're not going to be acting, you know, out of frustration or complete overwhelm or trauma. And again, that's an important, you know, and we need to start talking about what it is to be autistic, and that this is actually a sign of mental health. This is a sign of trauma. This is a sign of a medical condition, because people just think when we talk about autism, people are thinking all sorts of different things, you know. And I'm really not afraid to tackle issues, and, you know, because we, like you said, I also don't know any autistic adult who hasn't had trauma in their lives, hasn't been impacted by this, including myself, you know. And I think sometimes when people see people like yourself and me, Maqqi, you know, kind of chatting like this, you know, they think this is the way we always are, you know. But, you know, we don't do videos when we're having bad days, you know, and when things are getting us down. We just don't do that. So, you know, well, I don't, but, you know, I'm sure some people do decide to show the world how they are in those days too. And I think the world also needs to see that. But I think people make big assumptions sometimes about, you know, autistic people and our abilities and our mental health, kind of based on a snapshot, you know. And I think a day like Ausome Conference really gives an insight to people about what it is to be autistic, and, you know, why we need to be autistic, because we're not you know, we haven't been allowed to be autistic, basically. You know, it's a tragedy. You know, we're portrayed as a tragedy, a burden. And, you know, if that's, you know, the story we're growing up surrounded by, that's obviously going to have a negative effect on us.
Yeah, exactly. And not just on us, though. It's just the thing. I mean, teachers are told, and SNAs are kind of told, you know, autistic students are difficult. They're disruptive in the classroom. They are hard to teach. You need special skills to go and work out how to manage their behavior and stuff. And the whole business of, actually, you know what, they're human beings with human feelings and hopes and aspirations, worries, and ideas and passions and stuff, just the same as any other kid. Let's start with that. That never comes into the bloody equation. But if that was the starting point, and you said, well, you know, you see them causing, getting upset in class and so on, well, that's because something's not working out for them. Instead of, oh no, they're causing disruption for the other students. You know, and the same with parents. You did a talk there. You interviewed Catherine Lyons, and she was talking about going to her first meeting of a parents group, and she walks into the room and they're all sitting around crying. Crying because of the tragedy that they've been burdened with, this disaster called an autistic child. Oh, God help us. And she's like, what the hell's all this? You know, really, like, I mean, that's literally where we're at. This is how are we, like, 2 decades into the 21st century, and people are still looking at it as something you need to bawl your eyes out about. It has an impact not just on autistic people, but people around them, because the whole bloody narrative is about disaster. You know,
that is the whole story. Is it's a tragedy, you know. So I mean, you know, and I think obviously I'm very much about promoting, you know, a more positive image of autistic people, but also a realistic image. That's, I mean, we don't have to be pretending, everything's rosy. And, I think as autistics, sometimes when we say, like, we see the world differently, people think we have this naive view of the world and we don't get a lot of the stuff. It's quite the opposite, actually. We see all the crap that's in the world, and we see how
we see all of it. The stuff that other people's filters are able to gloss over and filter out and pull a curtain over. Unfortunately, we're seeing it all.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, too much of it is actually directed at us as well.
Yep.
Whereas it's not so easy to filter out the nasty things when they're pointed directly at you all the time.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're drifting into
we're totally drifting. I know, we better stop, because we could have a 2-hour conversation. That's
friends.
I keep telling any autistic people I'm talking to, I'm like, yeah, we'll have a quick chat, and I'm like, oh, it's like 2 hours. That's what autistic conversation it is. Like, I've been on conversation.
We can't communicate and we can't empathize with each other, so let's just prove that.
Weird, isn't it? How we're just going to communicate here. So what do you think would be the highlight of the day? Well, I suppose you're actually naming out quite a good few things that you're interested in or you're looking forward to. What do you think? Well, think of the different people who are coming. So, like, let's say for parents, what do you think would be what valuable lessons will they kind of learn on the day? Because it is about empowering parents, really, to have healthy relationship and good relationship with the kid. It's about giving back that connection that is sometimes stolen with that negative story about autism, instead of actually, the autistic story.
I'll tell you what, I was watching TV last night, not something I do particularly often, but I was watching TV, and there's this ad for skin cream, and they had some athlete going on about this skin cream, because her skin gets very dry when she does all her sports. And at the end of it, she says, my skin is confident with name of product. And I sat there and thought, that thing about confidence, all these ads that are directed at women, they tend to go on about confidence because it's such an important thing. And it struck me, in some ways, what this conference is about is the reason why confidence is a good thing to sell to women in ads is because so much in life tries to kind of strip away confidence and instill doubt. And for parents, that's exactly what happens to them. Particularly parents, is exactly the same process. Your sense of confidence in your ability to be a parent and to understand or know what's best for your kid gets stripped away. And by giving a consistent message and a positive and a hopeful message, and a message that is empowering, and that's important. It's empowering to parents, saying, look, this is how it can work, and you can do this, and you can do it right. Don't worry about it. You don't need to listen to weird cranks. That is about giving that confidence back to people, and it's exactly that. You don't need a face cream, okay? You need this conference. That's what it's about. It's about telling people, look, here's a message that actually gives you back that confidence to act, to be a parent again, and treat your child as a child. It's actually not that difficult, and you can do it. That, I think what's in there for parents most of all. You don't have to despair. It's not a tragedy. So get your confidence with Ausome Conference.
Yeah, and confident kids. But I think confidence is the key to being, happy, successful. I would say is happiness to me. Confidence is such a big part. I suppose it's also, that's an interesting point, because it's also for autistic people who are attending, like autistic teens or adults, it's about giving them more confidence as well, and teachers. And because I find, professionals, whether they're psychologists or SNAs or teachers or social care workers who come to courses that I do, it is a confidence issue. And actually, that's what I feel, because I break it down. You're kind of explaining stuff on a human level, and people are like, oh, I get it. And they feel more confident, literally within a few hours, because you're kind of just allowing them to actually see this person as a human. And we all understand, what it is to be human. So That's pity I didn't pick that tagline. Something for confidence.
Yeah, I'll license it to you for a fee.
Yeah, no problem. Brilliant. Well, that's a really important point. It is about, I think, empowering autistics to feel more confident. And I mean, that's what happens when, I mean, there's people talking at this year's conference who attended last year's conference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I know there's like, you know, one particular speaker who, you know, wasn't sure they'd have the confidence to do it, and they do. And it's brilliant to kind of create this platform as well to you know, to build on that, and that, you know, maybe somebody watching it this year will be presenting next year. And you know, I think, yeah, I suppose there's just so many elements to the conference as well.
Yeah, and they're all role models. They're all role models, you know.
Yeah.
When you're a teacher and you're autistic and you're concerned about coming out as an autistic teacher, and you see an autistic teacher standing up there saying, I'm autistic, I'm a teacher, and here's me being confident and telling you how it goes, you think, that could be me. That could be me too. I could do that too. It's breaking those barriers. I mean, it's shocking to think, like, when you actually look at other, say, movements or whatever, that those people who are the first one to be that person are so important by proving you can do it and you don't burst into flames.
Yeah.
And the minute you do, the floodgates open, and next thing you know, there's 15 people in the same situation. That's so important. And I think the mix and diversity, I kind of said it kind of earlier on about this mix between having somebody from the kind of the psych world and a teacher and a minor and somebody talking about this and somebody talking about that, all these different angles and perspectives and stuff like that. It's pressing so many of those first time buttons. I think it's really, really important to actually get that out there and show that we can actually just be human beings talking about being human beings who are also autistic. And, you know, actually, do you know what? We don't have tails and horns and stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, and I think that is the difference with Ausome Conference and I suppose autistic-led events, you know, where you have, like, if it's an autism event for teachers, for parents, for whatever, it's about trying to get them to work with the autism. It's about what works with autism. It's about getting the best results with autism. But what's missing is, what does that work for the autistic person? So, I mean, that's, you know, that's why this conference is so important, because it is actually like, well, this is what we are. This is what works for us. You know, it's not about kind of trying to get methods and ways and strategies to, you know, fit us into the school or the whatever it is, the organization, or to you know, to do be like that. It's actually us saying, well, actually, this is what we need as autistic people. Yeah, and that's really, really important, actually.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too.
It's really good. Not just because I get to go and mouth off, but that's always important. But yeah, I'm actually going to enjoy other people's stuff. You know, I mean, I can't wait to hear what Frank has got to say. I mean, I you know, me and Frank, we butt heads all the time about stuff. But we do it in a kind of a professional kind of a way. Do you know what I mean? That we've kind of got differing views on the same thing, but like we're never going to actually fall out over it.
Yeah.
It's challenging each other. And I want Kieran, who he's such a damn smart guy. He has to say he's got to be worth hearing, you know. And I mean, it's the same. I could just keep going down the list again, you know. I mean, it's the same thing with every one of them. They are such kind of market-leading products, if you want to put it that way. They really are. It's such a great bloody mix of people, and it's going to be. I'm just going to be glued to it the whole bloody way through, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. Right. Well, we'll leave it at that. You're looking forward to it.
Christmas.
So if anybody is interested, we still have a few tickets left. It is almost sold out now at this point. But it's on Sunday, the 15th of November. Ausome Training. You can go to our website to get tickets. if you can't join us live, then, you know, or if you want to join us live and then, you know, savor it afterwards or keep it as a resource, you can sign up for the Amazing ticket, which will give you lifetime access to it. So Maqqi, I'm sure you'll be getting a recording to be to watch and rewatch. Thanks so much for talking to you today, Maqqi, and I'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah, see you then. Look.
Bye.